योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणम् सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। Namaste everyone.
Yeah, namaste.
Namaste.
Hi Mathura, hello Sudipta.
Hi Hari.
Okay, so thank you for being part of the session. I know many more people signed up, but perhaps had other engagements today. So hopefully the recording will be useful for those who missed joining the live session. But those who are in the live, I would request you to keep your videos on, unless you have a real reason not to. Yeah. Sudipta, you're here?
Yeah, I'm just trying to turn it on by changing some settings here.
All right. Okay. So let's maybe have a quick round of introductions. Just two simple questions. Who am I? And how am I feeling right now? And maybe you can also share what do you look forward to in this 4 sessions that we have planned for the 4 months. So I can start. Some of you know me, some of you may not. My name is Hari, and I am based out of Hyderabad. Right now, visiting my hometown in Kerala, and I am a yoga therapist based in Krishnamacharya tradition and trained by Yogavahini and Ritampara Ashram. I'm also a coach, so I facilitate leadership programs and coaching conversations for individuals and groups. And how am I feeling? I feel quite excited on 2 counts because one, we just finished a week-long, very intense and immersive Mahabharata immersion in Cochin. It's a kind of an archetypal work integrating Mahabharata and Navarasas and Yoga Sutras and things like that. So we were a team of 5-6 facilitators along with my mentor Raghu Anantnarayanan, and so just came back from it yesterday night. So feeling quite energized and tired at the same time. So that's what I'm feeling, and I am looking forward to really going beyond the textbook that we have decided for these sessions, and also use these sessions to more share what are our personal understandings of some of these key ideas, what are our practices and things like that. That's what I'm looking forward to. Okay, how about others?
Yeah, I can go next. Um, my name is Shudipto Shah. I am from Kolkata, and I am associated with Ritambara Sangha in different programs, and with different like people, and started my yoga journey um, f with help from this Sangha as well. So it's great. Like I'm very grateful about that, and I have been practicing yoga for like 3 years or more than that right now. Uh, how am I feeling right now? I'm well. I'm feeling a bit excited. Um, not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm feeling a bit blessed also because I saw the WhatsApp chat from Hari, and I just spontaneously joined without thinking much. I mean, I didn't had a plan to join this session. Maybe I forgot. I had remembered when Hari had sent that earlier, but I just saw it and I just spontaneously, instinctively joined, and here I am. So it's that way. I'm feeling a bit excited. I haven't read that book, so I'm not sure if that is a prerequisite for attending the next session. But yeah, being in this tradition, yoga, practicing yoga, actually, I'm very curious and interested to know about this. So that's the background.
Yeah, hi, I can go next. I'm architect Madhura Modi. I'm staying in Bombay, and from past 2.5 months, I'm practicing yoga under Hari's guidance, and I'm very happy, and I'm observing a lot of changes regarding my body and mind connection and balance, etc. And I'm curious to be part of this group because I'm already part of Vastu Sangha of Ritambara, and I am into Chikitsa Vastu basically, and I'm working with lot of people for their houses and for the improvement of the energies and balancing of their lifestyles, etc. And the title of this program, like Health, Healing and Beyond, has made me curious because I think yes, these all these parts like health, healing, yoga, and like inner and outer space balancing is very very much important. I have not read this book, but I'm sure ki I will get to learn a lot from these sessions, so I'm curious. Thanks.
Wendy, you need to unmute. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Yeah, Wendy is my name, and I am tuning in from Australia. I have been studying yoga for a long time now. I have done teacher training at the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, and I've done some yoga therapy studies with Svādhyāya yoga, and I also link in with Yoga Bahini. Saraswati has connections with Australia, so that's nice. Yeah, I am having sort of feelings of a little bit of maybe nervousness because I don't know how deep I can go with some of the understandings of the other texts that, you know, Krishnamacharya studied so deeply. I guess, you know, I'm sort of thinking as a non-Indian person, you know, I'm not as familiar with a lot of the other texts that are mentioned in the book. So, yeah, I'm excited to learn a little bit more about that. And it's really for me to get a bit of a deeper understanding of things. I think, you know, even though I've been reading a lot for years, still my understanding is surface. So any discussions is useful for me to build on that. So looking forward to hearing some more from everybody. Thank you.
Swarna? I can't hear you. Can you try reconnecting the audio? Maybe you can try removing your earphone. It could. Okay, I think she's trying to rejoin. Yeah. So just to clarify Sudipta's point, it's okay that you haven't read the book as yet. So one of the things I thought about today's session was I'll also read few passages, and so that could take care of that. Secondly, also Wendy, I'm also looking more this in terms of locating where we are with respect to what gets evoked in us as we went through it, rather than more of a technical study. So it could be purely our sharing of our own practice and understanding. That's the intention. So no pressure to be accurate. Yeah, so Swarna is back. Maybe we can hear her and then start. Yes, Swarna.
Yeah, I'm Swarnalatha from Bangalore. So Ritambara is something that pulls me, it's like a magnet for me. So these sessions, what they offer and often do it is kind of, it helps me in my healing process, or it's more like, this kind, to me, it is more of a satsang. That's how I see it. So whenever there is anything that's happening, yeah, I feel like being part of it. Thank you.
Okay. Swarna, do you have the book? What we the topic of today's?
No, I don't have. No, I don't have the hard copy.
Okay, got it. So how we can go about the session is let's read few passages. Who else have the book here? Wendy, do you have?
Yes, I have on my Kindle, and I've read the first 2 chapters. Yeah.
Okay. Madhura, how about you?
No, I don't have it actually right now, but
Okay,
I'll purchase it.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So Wendy, would you mind? Maybe we can alternate a few passages reading as we start.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually, when I went through this, I found that even the introduction that R.H. Cravens wrote was quite fascinating and insightful, and it had some very important remarks about Krishnamacharya and teaching and things like that. So maybe that is something everybody can go through once you have the book. But I'll just share one. I think the recording resumed. So one of the things I found good here, like something remarkable, was an acharya is not simply a wise teacher. He is one who has traveled far and lived what he taught. As he's talking about, because Krishnamacharya was often referred to as a Yogaśāla Krishnamacharya. And so that really stuck with me, that it not just a teacher, but somebody who's traveled widely, lived what he taught. So I think that stayed with me. And the other key word that struck me is the living tradition of Krishnamacharya. So here in the introduction, he says, one in the words of the great Belgian yoga teacher, Claude, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Marechal, to strengthen their sense of responsibility and to lighten it. That is one of the ways in which he described how teachers or students who are touched by his life's work, Krishnamacharya's life's work. And above all, the living tradition of Krishnamacharya is about service to others. So as I read this, I really felt that, because I have never seen or engaged with Krishnamacharya, but in many ways, some of the principles he seemed to have brought out in his teachings and practices seems to have been embodied by many of his students and students, like Desikachar students who primarily taught me, and some of the other teachers. So in a way, what really struck me about this particular phrase was that tradition, not as a very static structure that is replicated, but something that is infused with life, which is carried forward in a living way. So to be living also means to change, right? So that is, I could really resonate with that, because to live is also to accept change and adapt. And this is one of the cornerstones of the Krishnamacharya tradition practice also, right? That we look at the students and we engage at the level of the individual and see. So one of the things which I remember Saras told me when we were doing yoga therapy was, so we have all these frameworks to look at different conditions, but when you actually meet a student, forget all of that and just connect with the person at a deep level. So that is something that I got reminded when I read that line about the living tradition of Krishnamacharya is about service to others.
I also felt very connected to that part that you just mentioned as well, and to think of myself as being part of that service was also a very good feeling. I guess we're all part of that, and serving others in different ways. So
maybe
I
will leave that two statements, that the Acharya is not simply a teacher, but who has traveled far and lived what he taught, and the keyword, the living tradition of Krishnamacharya. Maybe if there is anybody who also would like to add on to any vocations, we can pause for a few minutes and explore that. And I see Prerna has also joined. Welcome, Prerna. You can also...
Hi, sorry, I was a bit late.
No problem. We also started a bit late. We just finished an intro of who am I and how am I feeling and what do I look forward to in this space. So maybe you can share that and also share anything about, I don't know if you listened to what I just shared, the statement about who is an Acharya and maybe you can introduce yourself and share what are you looking forward to.
Yeah, so my name is Prerna. I teach yoga here in Bangalore. And I was actually particularly excited about the choice of the book because I wanted to go through the first two chapters. I have read this book quite a while ago. It was a recommended book in one of my therapy training. But I was hoping that probably this meeting today would be a bit of a revision into this, into the first two chapters. This book was a fantastic book. I do remember making a few notes. Probably we'll get back to it maybe by the next session when we reconnect. So today I'm just happy to hear from people. Yeah, I'm happy to receive.
Thanks, Prerna. Lakshman, do you also want to just quickly share before we move on?
Sure. Thanks, Hari. Hi, everyone. This is Lakshman here. I'm totally new to this space. I come from a serious play and game-based transformation play. So where am I right now? I'm just trying to understand how the essence of yoga, body, mind and breath work together with regards to healing, and that's where I'm part of it. Everything is going to be new exploration for me, first time exploration.
So I'll just start with chapter 1. I'll read a couple of paragraphs and then let's see. Does that sound good to everyone? Especially because many of you didn't have the book for this week. Yeah. Okay, chapter 1. The fire that dispels darkness. Whatever place, whatever time the ancestors have framed yoga practices to suit them all, only the attitudes and circumstances of human beings change. When my father was well into his 90s, so again, this book is written by Desikachar and R.H. Karen, so he's speaking about Krishnamacharya. When my father was well into his 90s, I walked into his room one afternoon and found him alone, sound asleep. And he was teaching. Even in sleep, his words were clearly distinguishable as he chanted Sanskrit verses in the traditional way that sages of India have always taught their students. On this occasion, as I recall, he was reciting the tale of Valmiki, who was seized by a fit of anger when he visions of the Ramayana, the epic poem. That my father, who was widely known as Professor T. Krishnamacharya, should be teaching in his deep sleep did not surprise me, although I was deeply moved. In those final years of his long life, I knew he was feeling a great sense of urgency. He had amassed so much knowledge that he alone possessed. He was desperate to pass along as much as possible, knowing that otherwise it would be lost and irrecoverable. Even in dream life, he was never off his teaching. Okay, so I'll just pause there because this is one part that I found quite moving for myself. I think two things came to me when I read this. One, in my learning with Saras and Raghu, one of the focus that both of them used to keep inviting us back to during the studies is it doesn't really matter how much you know, in the sense of you remember whether a specific condition needs a specific intervention or whether you really memorize the sutras and things like that, but how much are you able to really live the practice in your life? Secondly, what is your awareness of yourself vis-a-vis what you have learned? So especially when I started learning Yoga Sutra with Raghu, the fundamental approach that he invited us to do was, can you really look at this as a mirror to locate where you are today in your life? And it was very fresh because till then I had listened to few Yoga Sutra lectures here and there, but everything was very theoretical, sometimes very boring, and I could never connect to it. The moment I started looking at it as a mirror, or at least that idea of a mirror, it became super fascinating. Because first there was a struggle. Oh, how do I really look at it like that? So when I was reading this part of the chapter, I was also in touch with the sense of urgency both Raghu and Saras shares in passing along what they have received from both Krishnamacharya and Desikachar. And oftentimes, and I especially remember the first time I joined the Yogacharya course with Saras. The session she described, what does it mean to be a Yogacharya? I told Saras, I don't think I match up to any of these qualities or anything. So I feel really small and inadequate in being a yoga teacher or whatever that title means. But one of the things she shared at that time was only if you start sharing, you will focus more on refining what you have learned only then you will start focusing on your own practice. So my own beginnings were in this journey. I think it was quite selfish to begin with, that okay, so if I teach, I can reaffirm my practice deeper. And secondly, I was also in touch with this urgency that my teachers felt. So there was a certain questioning that I asked of myself, that am I a deserving enough patram to receive this, or how do I cleanse and create that space within me so that I can really receive? So these were two things that I was evoked from my memories of this journey. And so just pausing for anyone else to share if you are evoked. Otherwise, we can move on after some time.
I think it was just that passage is amazing, to think that Krishnamacharya's depth of knowledge just kept coming through him, no matter if he was, yes, asleep or in whatever state he was. There was so much knowledge for him to share that he had to keep sharing it, even in through his sleep. Yeah, it's such depth of knowledge is amazing.
Like what got invoked in me from the passage and what Hari shared is the urgency or kind of desperation feeling, and about the transient nature of this, how would I call it, like world, like matter and stuff, and looking at this physical body being part of it, that's also going to perish like everything else. And that urgency of trying to grasp or understand or get that, I don't know what it is, but I mean something more than this is I mean something more than this transient nature of everything, and continuing that search of answer to this question, and passing it on to others who have the same quest, or at least trigger or kindle that quest in them. Yeah, I think that's what got invoked. And then suddenly I felt like I am the conduit, like a pipe or something, and things are anyway moving through it. Not much that that I can like forcefully do, but yeah, I mean just keep witnessing things or watching things as they happen. So both of these thoughts kind of passed through me, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just skip the next couple of para, which again talks about Krishnamacharya's many degrees and PhDs and the wealth of the breadth and depth of his knowledge and things like that. But I'll just start from the point where I felt for myself a very critical part, which perhaps relates and is very relevant for today's times also. So I'll just start from that point. So here he says, yet, so this is after he says about what all Krishnamacharya learned and mastered and everything. He says, yet the purpose of my father's erudition was not to preserve the past, but for modern life. In that sense, this most orthodox of religious men was also one of the most revolutionary. He swept aside prohibitions laid down thousands of years ago against teaching yoga to women. To the contrary, he believed that yoga was even more important for women than for men, in part because it would enhance their health in pregnancy and giving birth to a healthy child. He also felt that women were the most trustworthy preservers and transmitters of yogic teaching. My father was a celebrated healer in his own lifetime. This ability too owed much to his willingness to adapt past practices to present needs. He demonstrated the contributions that yoga could make to physical and mental health, to the prevention of disease and recovery from illness. In many parts of the world, his practices are currently being used to help victims of asthma, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, digestive disorders, back pain, and a host of other ailments, including mental illness and disabilities. He further proved the value of yoga in sustaining a lucid, balanced mind in our distracting, stressful, and difficult societies. Towards these ends, he experimented and explored ways to refine yogic techniques to fit the busy routines of modern life. I'll pause here. Since we also have few yoga teachers in the group here, I think one invitation which I'm looking forward to hear from all of you is, apart from the evocation from this, how do we in our own teaching are finding this quality of adapting to the times, coming alive? I know Prerna is doing some good work with some other physicians and or Wendy, perhaps you can share the work you do in Australia. How is this quality of adapting an ancient practice to modern times through our own practice as well as our teaching is experienced in as we hold this living tradition? I think I would invite any of you to share. And maybe some of you who are students who have joined in, you could also share about how you may have had a certain idea of yoga before you may have experienced the tradition, and that's also a possibility. Yeah. So I'll wait for the group to respond and then add my thoughts.
Well, for me, it's actually about bringing back some of the more traditional fundamental parts of yoga back into the practice rather than kind of thrusting it forward. Because I think nowadays yoga is seen as, you know, as we know, all the physical practice and exercise and all these things, and it loses much of the richness. And so I actually like to go kind of back to some of the more traditional ways and, you know, help people to understand that it is much more that the whole philosophy is very deep and rich, and how it influences daily life, not what it does just in class or even one-to-one, how it goes through all of our life, not just our physicality. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but yeah, I like to bring back some of the fundamental aspects of yoga.
maybe you can also share, Wendy, as you are quite senior also in terms of the teachings in this tradition in Australia. I'm not saying, how do you find this being received also in a larger context, which might also be looking at it in a certain way?
Well, yes, I mean, my situation is changed at the moment. I'm not teaching so much, but in the past, the students very much value hearing, some of even the yamas and niyamas, and yeah, I was really kind of very surprised and happy how much they would take it into their consideration, and the feedback that I would get, that they would share it with their family and friends, and think about it carefully, was really very heartwarming. And I think it's really needed as well in our busy lifestyles, that we can reflect more and more on those deeper feelings inside ourselves and how we are behaving with each other. And so I found, very, very, people were really interested. And I also felt it was a duty that I had, that I included these things in practice, because I know that I had been through years of doing yoga and never heard of so many of these concepts until I started doing teacher training. And I think it was a huge oversight. And so I felt that it was part of my duty as a yoga teacher to try and bring, even I have only a very small amount of knowledge, but to introduce some of the concepts. And I think it was very well received whenever I've done it.
Thank you. Hi, Rekha, I see your hands up. Can you also come on video if your bandwidth is fine?
I'm having a challenge with my video, so
That's
I will
okay.
try after I finish talking. I'll get my son to help me, perhaps.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, no, what Wendy mentioned, the point is so well taken. I live in Canada, and 20 years ago, I did do a year session at Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, and then I noticed as I practiced every day, even for 10 minutes, my stress levels, would be gone. But then as human beings, as you start feeling better, you stop practicing. And I think that's where, trouble starts, you start seeing that. And now I've, after all these years, I'm kind of going back to yoga. And I think in the Western world, it's more looked upon more as a physical exercise. I mean, there are yoga studios and, they do the exercises, but I think the concept, the depth that you have in the Ashtanga yoga, like Wendy mentioned, the yama, niyamas and all that is lost. And when you actually dwell on each one, you kind of start looking at yourself. And you really need to put your ego aside and have that honest lens on yourself, and then you see your shortcomings as well, right? Even something like ahimsa, right? It's even a thought, it's even a negative thought about some person is also ahimsa. So it is so deep, because at the base your thoughts are so important. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm coming back to, I'm going back to yoga, and it is just wonderful for me right now.
Thank you, Rekha. Others, anything to add?
Hi. Yeah, I just thought so in fact, a lot of what Wendy mentioned is what I think I'm doing with my practice and with my teaching as well. So in fact, over these years of teaching, I feel like a lot of the ancient practices are what is really helping people out. So I've recently started this gut health focus with a friend of mine who's a dietitian. Although she's a Western, trained dietitian, she still follows a lot of Ayurvedic practices to heal her own gut. And I've had my fair share of gut health issues in my childhood and in my teens. So I know that a lot of breathing pranayama practices, correct modified yoga practices, those Ayurvedic medication or anything of that sort. So I feel like there's a lot of acceptance of these ancient practices that are now coming into focus. So I think even Western doctors are now prescribing these integrative approaches and holistic approaches to actually dealing with gut issues like IBS, or for that matter, depression, anxiety, all of these mental health issues that are closely connected with an imbalanced gut. So it's I think I'm really happy to know that there's so much acceptance to all of this. And we're all going back to these Eastern practices. And I think our conversation as well, when we met last, we spoke a lot about how the Yoga Sutras are now being looked at as literally everything that you need to know and understand for a good mental health, for mental strengthening. So a lot of what psychologists are, recommending as therapy or trying to get you to, through talk therapy or offering you these perspectives to think so that you can heal and start, feeling through whatever's going on and moving on forward. All of that is pretty much explained in the Yoga Sutras as well. Each of these sutras have an excellent way of helping you sort out your mental issues and to, cope with your life and everything. So I feel like it's all coming back. It's all being presented in a modern way for people, so that it's a lot more accessible and easily understood by people. But there is definitely so much of there's so much power in our ancient practices, and I feel like in the next following years it's only going to get a lot more. People are going to seek all of this a lot more than any of the whatever modern science is supposed to offer. So I feel like we're in the right place at the right time, offering the right things. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how people take it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Prerna. I think quite relevant. I'll just add what struck me as I was reading this. One of the common things that I hear sometimes when I ask somebody, do you have a practice, or men I'm saying, sometimes they say, but yoga is for women. So almost the narrative seems to have kind of flipped, like even in this group or when I curate a retreat or things like that. I see very less men associate with yoga as a personal practice these days, proportionately. Maybe because of the advent of gym and other functional trainings and things like that. So when I was reading this part about he swept aside prohibitions, laid down, almost the narrative and the entire situation seems to have kind of really changed globally from a gender perspective. Secondly, if I look at all my teachers, I think except for 2 or 3 teachers, most of them are women teachers. So that way also I see that there's a huge shift which has come about, which also speaks a lot about the times we are in.
Rishi, can you help me with the setting?
Rekha, you're
Rishi?
on mute.
Oh, sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah. Hi, Padmaja. Padmaja is a scene.
Hi, Hari.
Yeah.
I'm joining for the first time this group.
We are all joining for the first time this group. No problem.
Okay. You just started, or?
We just started. I was just telling, so about what we are doing, Patmanja, so I'm reading few paragraphs and then just sharing our evocations. So I was just sharing about how most of my teachers are women teachers, and then you joined. So Patmaja is a senior yoga therapist from Yoga Vahini. She's currently moved to US. So thanks for joining early morning, I know, for you. Yeah, so that is one part. The second part which struck me when I read this was also while Krishnamacharya did adapt to the times, there's an enormous sense of integrity to his adaptation in terms of how do you not lose the essence. So it also kind of evoked a lot of associations and things about the distortions and the colonization that yoga is also going through right now, especially the cult fit brand of yoga. Cult fit is a brand in India, Wendy. So it's almost like gym kind of a practice of yoga. One day you'll have legs, one day you'll have abs, things like that. So I'm every land has its own versions of these happening. So that was one thing, that while there is this gift of adaptability that many of our masters have showcased, there's also a certain sense of responsibility they carried when they actioned that aspect of yoga, no? So it also brought me to, because I do my fair share of experimentation. I sometimes work a lot with theater, music, arts. So one of the things I keep asking myself every now and then is, how true am I staying to the core? Even as I add layers into the experiments and things like that. And of course, I think for me, at an experiential level, one of the great gifts I've received on this aspect of adaptability of yoga was with Raghu and Ritambara Ashram, where we do a lot of Antaranga yoga based work, where we look at the Itihasa Purana traditions, different things, and combine. And in many ways, I feel that Raghu's way of teaching, where he combined his experience from three different diverse traditions of process work, mythology, not mythology, Purana, and yoga into such an experiential part, I feel is something that is inspirational, because that's how I am seeing a contemporary application of these ancient techniques, and something that really inspires me. The other thing which really evoked in this was the sentence about refining the yogic techniques to fit the busy routines of modern life. So I remember once Srivatsa Ramaswamy sir gave us a series of postures that we could do as chair yoga for corporates when we were doing the Vinyasa Krama training with him. And so I was just wondering, here is somebody who's almost 70-year-old at that time, learned with Krishnamacharya for 30 years, and then who's also saying that, you see, if you have 20 minutes, you can still do a practice. Why don't you try, kind of a invitation, not getting hung up that, oh, you have to devote 90 minutes, 2 hours to do something meaningful. So these are some of the associations and things that really struck me, that, yeah, if you have even 15 20 minutes, if you're a good enough teacher, you can create something meaningful for your student. In fact, recently, one of my students, she joined the class late. So we usually have a 45-minute class. We ended up having a 15-minute class. And so we obviously cut down certain things and modified some things to finish the class. And at the end of 15 minutes, she said, this seems to have more impact than the 40-minute class. And she got so hooked onto it that she started doing the 15-minute even regularly, kind of a thing. So yeah, so sometimes I think the adaptability also surprises us as teachers at some points. Padmaja, feel free to come in if you're feeling evoked by any of the sharings or readings. It's an interactive session.
Sure, Hari. Yeah. What you said, no, 15-minute practice. Yes, the power of that 15 minutes is very high, I feel. I've also designed like 5-minute practice for people where they stand in their kitchen waiting for the milk to come up or waiting for the rice to cook. They're standing there and doing that 5 minutes practices with the breathing, which has really helped them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy, do you want to take over the reading? Maybe we can read till that definition of yoga by Patanjali.
We are reading Heart of Yoga.
No, we are reading Health, Healing and Beyond.
Oh, I don't have that book, Hari. I have
That's
to.
okay. One of us will read. So Wendy is going to read.
Sure.
What is yoga? This gift that promises so much. It is a simple word of vast meaning, subject to many partial understandings and not few misconceptions. For many millions of people around the world who practice yoga, it is a kind of physical exercise that involves prescribed movement and disciplined breathing. This is known as Hatha Yoga. For many, yoga is identified with types of meditation, such as Raja Yoga, which reaches towards self-knowledge, or Kundalini, the quest for cosmic energy and spiritual ecstasy. Kriya is concerned with cleansing, which in extreme form sometimes appears to be self-mutilation. There is also Tantric Yoga, popularly characterized by its erotic associations. These and other schools have offshoots and variations that, with more or less fidelity to the true nature of yoga, have their adherents. Before offering a very brief summary of the yoga taught by Krishnamacharya, let me present more fundamental definitions. Yoga is a word from Sanskrit, the original literary and philosophical language of India. The word derives from the root yuj, which has two traditional complementary meanings. The first is to bring two things together, to meet, to unite. The second meaning, to converge the mind. The simplest example from daily life is driving a car. We regulate the gas pedal, turn the steering wheel, while simultaneously keeping, it is hoped, our concentration on the traffic and pedestrians around us. Various movements come together and converge with our attention. Champion racing drivers are likely to be among those familiar with moments in a state of yoga, even if they might not call it that. Another meaning may be more important, to reach a point we have not reached before. Something that is impossible in this moment becomes possible through yoga. Today I sit on the floor and can barely stretch my legs in front of me. After several weeks of practice, I may be able not to only sit erect, but to stretch and bend forward easily with knees straight, reaching towards my toes. In stages, the impossible becomes possible. At the deepest level, all of these meanings themselves come together. The source of my father's teachings and the essence of yoga were formulated by the great Indian sage Patanjali more than 2,000 years ago in this succinct definition. Yoga is the ability to direct the mind exclusively towards an object and sustain that direction without any distractions. Shall I pause there, Hari?
Yeah, I think the next para is something that we can reflect on and share. I think we have about 20 minutes before we close. So for this part, what I felt is maybe we can all share, both as students and practitioners of yoga. At this point in life, what is yoga for me? What is my personal definition of yoga? We can take a couple of minutes, reflect, and then share. Go ahead, Rekha.
Yeah, for me, it is to regain my flexibility. I mean, I had a health issue earlier last year. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So up until then, I was able to sit cross-legged down and could get up with ease. So now, for me, yoga is to get me back to that state of health. And it's working. I've started doing, and I can, sit down. I still need help to kind of get up, props to get up. But my aim is to be able to sit down cross-legged, do all the asanas, and get up, like a normal, healthy human being does.
Thank you.
When I think about yoga, and I think about it as a tool for personal transformation, that reduction of suffering. And it makes me think of those definitions that I just read about. If it's a tool for personal transformation, then it's taking me a place that I've never been before, because I'm constantly changing and evolving. And it's also bringing me back together to how maybe I should be without all these clashes and things going on inside me. So yes, I think